Well, here we are again. Another interview, another week, another interview. But this one in particular is an absolute cracker. This guy is a photographer. Now, I don't really get to interview too many photographers, which is a shame. Which 1 second. I'm just getting no. Should be. Hopefully, people can hear me. If you can't, please say so in the chat. But you should be able to hear me. There's no reason why my mic is off. But this is the interesting thing. I think that the chances of interviewing a photographer are quite rare, actually. Now, I've got Peter saying to me he can't hear me. Let me look in the chat. Evening. Lee, if you can hear me, could you just put something in the chat to let me know? Because Peter is telling me he's in the green room and telling me he can't hear me. So he could earlier. So Lee, loud and clear. Okay, sounds good. That's good. Thank you very much. Must be something to do with you, Ben Peter. You'll find out perhaps when you come back on. But that'll be in a bit. Let me just at the moment. Let me just talk about a few things that are coming up. So obviously, Flux is in July, and edition 12 of the Flux Review magazine has just landed. It's 200 pages. There will be actually hard copies of that available, limited edition copies as well. And I think it could be moving to that in future. Flux itself, 17th, 20th of July in Marylebone. You can get tickets on Eventbrite for the private view, but it is on the whole of the weekend, and there are special events happening for that as well. This gives you a little flavour of what it's like, as you can see. It's in a place called the Bomb Factory, and quite frankly, it looks like it has been as well. But it's fantastic, an industrial space that is really, really cool, actually, to have an exhibition in. And I think it could be the case that we could be moving towards having that in the same space every time. So this will be the second time we are there, and it's fantastic. As you can see, plenty going on the private view. We have some drag artists that perform as well, which is cool. One of those being Anaphylactic, who is hosting it. And then we do also have Scarlet Butterfly. Now, what I will do towards the end is I will actually show you what she's doing. She's a performance artist, which is really, really cool. Now, still got the same slideshow before, so I'm going to jump forward a few, and this will be next week's guest. Carolina Skorek does some amazing work, and pretty much another photographer too. So really spoiling myself with photographers, that's for sure. So let's now talk about tonight's guest. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read you the statement that he's got on his website, because it's quite interesting how he has arrived at where he is. So my work sits between realism and fantasy. I often look for inspiration from paintings, movies, games. I started gaming at a very young age, and I think it's impacted my photography more so than any other art form, which is really interesting, I feel. Through my photography, I hope to impart fragments of fantasy to the viewer and encourage them to take a momentary step out of their reality. Now, that's, if you were to find my artist statement, yeah, we're along the same lines. We're on the same page, Peter and myself. So I'm going to, before we bring him in and sort out his sound problems that he seems to be having, I've put together a video, which you might have seen a little bit on Instagram, but this is the full length video now. Helpful. What did I tell you? Absolutely astonishing. So let's get Peter in, and hopefully his sound is sorted and everything's
Yes.
working.
Can you hear
You can
me?
hear me. Hello.
Hi, thank you, thank you. So sorry, I don't know what happened when we were doing some sound check. It was okay, and then suddenly
Yeah.
when it live, it sort of knocked my sound off, and I couldn't work out how to. So I had to reload the browser, and then it was fine. So
Right.
yeah,
So well, there's
yeah.
been people commenting already. So
Thank you. Thanks,
we've
Lee and
got
Joseph. I
yeah,
appreciate that.
Lee,
Thanks for being
Joseph,
here.
very cool. Joseph, majestic. And Lee there again, beautiful work, very up music compliment. Yeah, thanks Lee, because it takes me a while to sort the
That's what
music
I
out.
thought. The sound was really good. The
Yeah.
sound was really good.
So look, to be honest, I've got so many questions. I don't know which one to ask first. To be fair,
Hey.
but a good place to start is I read out your statement, which said that video games that's led you into what you do. So just let's have a little bit of background how can video games relate to these amazing photographs that you're
So
actually creating?
I'm I'm I've grown up in Hong Kong. So in Hong Kong we don't really have buildings like these. So these are like for this kind of size, this kind of scale cathedrals we don't. And the video games in the sort of late 80s, early 90s, or so 8-bit video game, they have these they're very fond of or they romanticize the sort of the medieval kind of ages. So they build these characters around mages and pretty much what the most video games that we have now was sort of originate from those days, and uh, they have churches and cathedrals and castles. They it's something that in Hong Kong we don't have, obviously, and from the games they just, and also because of the lack of the graphics are very basic, so it's all about the imagination. So they were able to create games that sort of makes you feel, wow, these spaces are amazing in the
Mm,
game. And for me, I came here when I was 20. So we never had these buildings. So when I first saw these buildings, I thought, wow. I mean,
yeah.
it's massive. It's impressive, and it's literally, you can look all the way around, and it's beautiful everywhere. The craftsmanship, the painting, sometimes all the woodwork, all the stonework. It's very impressive. But I never really picked up photography until I was about 35. So about 11 years ago, I picked up the camera. I haven't really sort of, and I've only sort of started visiting churches because I was initially was I picked up a camera because my daughter was born. She's 11 now. And previously I used to stargaze. I used to sit in the garden and just look at stars. And then when she was born, and I thought, I'm gonna have time to look at stars anymore. Like 4 in the morning with a cup of tea, sitting in the garden, look at stars. There's no way I'm gonna have time to do that because I need to look after the kid. So I sold most of my stargazing equipment and I put it into a camera so I can document her um, in a more sort of more than just a phone shot. I want to take some nice pictures. Uh,
Mm,
both my wife and I we are from art school, but I did I did product design, so it's very close to graphic design. So photoshopping, image editing, I've done it way before I did photography, so I'm quite used to doing that. And I used to Photoshop sort of product shots of like
okay.
phone cases designed, and I need to match it on the hand. So we need to
Yeah.
fake a rendering onto the hand, match the noise level, and match everything, and then put the phone on it so it looks real as part of some of the visual works that we deliver to clients. So I'm very used to the editing side of things.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
quite fun for me.
Yeah.
Um, so when I switch over to taking photos of my daughter, my wife hates my pictures. She was not impressed with any of the pictures I took of her. Because I don't know how to use the camera properly, so I always shoot on a wide. I had it on the 17 mil rather than, I never knew anything about the 50 or the 85 or things like that.
Oh.
So I, yeah, it's nice to have someone who can be brutally honest with their opinions. Like she wouldn't sugarcoat anything in terms of the images. So I have a really good guide to like whether something is good or not, and I trust her eye as well, because we both went to study art, and that sort of pushed me to work on my photography skills, which is my go-to lens. Even though that you saw these things, these are all sort of either 14. This is a 10mm, these ones, but it's a panorama. I often, my main lens that I use in the 85mm, pretty much. So that's my go-to lens for
Right. Interesting.
uh,
That's interesting. Yeah.
to I used to only have one lens because I go to commute to work. I work in South London, and I carry one body, one lens, and that's every day. 365 days, always at the camera. And my training photography is my commute. So it's on the tube, walking past any buildings, and street scenes. So street photography and then buildings, 85mm. Very strange combination, but um, it was interesting because then obviously because we're shooting a prime, we need to move a lot. And then it became my natural view of things with the 85, and I started doing stitching because we don't have a lot. I don't have a lot of money to spend on buying all the gear, and yeah, I started off have gear and have no idea. What was it? Was it again?
Yeah, all the gear and no idea.
All the
Yeah.
gear and no idea. So we all sort of gone through that phase.
Yeah.
And then very similar to what Christy from last week, she mentioned when she started, she had all the colors on the palette and she will start to work on it. And then later on, she decided she will limit the palettes that she has.
Yeah.
And that kind of pushes her to be more creative through having restrictions. So that's how I sort of developed my photography, by restricting myself on one lens, one body, and how am I going to shoot some scenes that is wider than what the camera can see. So that's where panorama came up. And I started stitching like 3 or 4 shots, and then it became like what if I do it that way? Yeah, what if I do? So I spent a good year and a half to experiment various ways of panoramas, and then sometimes I would shoot all the way, sort of 100 shots, or it's quite a lot, because it was an exciting time that the quality doesn't matter. It's just experiment, what works, what doesn't. Let's try and create. Like, what if I do that? What if I do that? If I take a very big shot, scale it down, would I lose all the noise? Like questions like that, I would sort of work on. It's a very exciting time when it's all about experimenting and just go and have fun with the camera.
Yeah, it's interesting because so I kind of gone along similar lines in that everything I do revolves around light and how I set the lights up, how I want people to look at my work the way that it's lit. So I don't use depth of field or anything. Everything is all about detail and light. And it's interesting how you see some people will set a studio up, out comes the light meter, they start playing about with the light meter, and I don't. I just take a few test shots and make the adjustments and look at the camera and go, okay, make another adjustment. Okay, now I've got it. I don't, I bought a light meter because I thought that's probably what I needed because everybody did it that way. But then I realized, well, no, this is daft. You can actually, use your own what you see and then and make the adjustments accordingly. And
well, especially like because we all mostly use digital cameras now. Like a lot of things became, it's very easy to get exactly how you want it. Just take the shot and then you can see it from the back, rather than back in the film days where we need to put a Polaroid, test the light, and then put the film in after that. So
and it's interesting because people think that a professional photographer just walks up and presses the button and that's it. But they always work the scene. They will always change the angle. They look at the back, might move differently. They will work the scene until they get the one shot that they're looking for, and they might not. They might not even get it. But it's really quite interesting. And Scott Kelby, who's an American photographer, he did a talk on this a few years ago that I went to, and it was exactly that. It was all about working the scene and making, being understanding how you do. And I think I mean, you mentioned you went to art school. For
Mm.
me, my photography started when I was really young with my father, who was a photographer. But it wasn't until I found a digital camera that I realized what I could do with it because of Photoshop, etc. So
Yeah. Yeah.
your Photoshop skills, were they there before you started taking these pictures, or yeah?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so you've
Because
got a
I
real
do.
big jump up the ladder.
Yeah. So prior to going photography for most of my work, I used to do more graphic design work, and with that and visualizing the sort of product design or industrial design uh, uh, onto in situ. So I do a lot of compositing in that sense. Not as much as you do, but
No.
in terms of my work, I would do that and matching so it looks real, matching the light and everything. So the detail, attention to detail came from there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just putting your website up so that people can
Oh,
see
thank
it, and
you.
I will bring this up. I will show people your site because it's a fantastic website, well worth a little visit to. But that's where it is. And
Appreciate it.
so,
Yeah.
thinking now about the fact that you're doing these panoramas, because I'm guessing that wasn't your first thought. So you've gone through the
No.
stitching, and then you
Yeah.
started to realize what you could do with that. So
Yeah, because the 85 was the starting point of this technique of panorama.
yeah,
So what I end up was applying the same thing but on a wide lens and see how it works. Um, and
interesting.
and it became something like these, not quite, but it was until I was shooting around London from 2014. But then I've only worked out how to do a full panorama, 180 degrees, where the camera would literally, sorry for the 85, but it's not the, but it's a with the it will just spin sort of along where the lens is, and it does that.
Yeah.
So you take multiple shots to create a scene like that, but
Yeah.
it's gonna look kind of messy. So it takes about average about 30 to 40 hours to tidy up and create something with quite a big panorama as well, so they can print quite large as well.
So
To do
are
that.
you sort of also taking shots in as HDR as well, or are you just
Yeah,
taking
so
straight?
I would have to bracket them because
Yeah.
I mean churches. Some of the shots, if they were with a very flat lighting, from like if the sky is very cloudy, uh, which one of the shots will be in the show, it's from Bath Abbey. So that day, it was very flat. So in the sense that the every single detail, every single sort of vault on the ceiling, you can actually see all the details on. I'll just quickly, I got a little printout for myself that I
Well,
share
I've got
with.
some. So I've got some of
Oh,
your shots we
is
can
this
talk
one?
through. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 1 second, because I
So
can.
you got it. Oh, thank you.
I have. Yeah. I've put. If we can go to that. Was it that one?
Yeah.
Or yeah,
Not that one. This one. This one.
one before.
Keep going.
Wait a
Keep
minute.
going.
One
I think.
second.
Yeah.
Oh, a bit further on. Okay.
Yeah. 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 That one.
Okay.
So
Back, Gary. Right.
yeah. Oh, back. There
Click
we go.
happy. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So that was on a cloudy day, so you get to see the entire fan vault, the details on it, which is a blessing because I think on a sunny day is more tricky
yeah.
because you need
Yeah. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
the camera can capture so much, even though the cameras nowadays they are incredible. The the range I still need to take 5 to 7 stops of light because with the sunlight coming through, and we want to make sure all the stained glass windows have all the details on. Because my intention is to, I mean, the prints that we're going to see in the show is going to be about A1 and also to a meter by 70.
Oh,
But
good.
there will be larger ones that I will print, which is not going to be in this show this time.
No.
But I will work on the sizes, and it will probably in A0 or a little bit bigger than that, and we will get to see the entire detail of all the fan vaults and everything, and also the details of the stained glass windows. So my
So
intention, yeah,
yeah.
right.
So what sort of resolution then is a final image?
Um, it's about 120. It doesn't seem very much because a lot of cameras nowadays they shoot 100, like the
Yeah.
medium format ones are 100. So
Yeah.
these will be 45 megapixel on my camera, and it will
Yeah.
add
Standard. Okay.
overlapping, and it will come up to about 100 to 120
Yeah.
megapixels per image.
Wow.
So they can print out fairly big. Yeah.
And it's interesting because look, we're both composite artists, and
Yeah.
one of the interesting things is that I take things, might be doors, it might be a door
Yeah.
handle, it could be it could be anything, but
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
know the image that I'm building up. But what people don't realize is that when you remove, if you've taken a picture that's at 45 meg resolution, then
Yeah.
the minute you start erasing or reducing parts of that picture, the quality of the overall image is starting to drop because you're throwing away pixels. And
Mm-hmm.
so by you stitching them together, instead of enlarging to
Yeah.
AO size, you're pretty
Yeah.
much starting at that point, which is
I'm starting at that
amazing.
point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
AO size and A1 size
A1 size
is the
is big
best.
enough.
I think it's big enough for most.
Yeah, it's big enough.
But the AO size, I would like to have it on a wall, but it's just a bit oversized for me to, if it's expensive to make, as for myself, and it's
Right. Well,
very hard to store. So we'll look into that.
let's just jump back to
I think
because I've got
Lee did mention. Yes, I do shoot. I shoot raw all the time. So in the sense that I want to be able to capture all the colors in the scene. I want as much color pencils that I have, or paint that I have. So from especially on a sunny day, I would take 7 stops all the way. So some of the scenes would be completely black, but just the window showing the details, and then some of the scenes will be completely white with the flooring or under the pews where it's really dark. You can see all the details. So I would combine all of them together, but not whilst keeping it quite natural. But we will be able to pick out all the essential details without too much noise introduced. Because I do play a lot with I tend to do with a pen, so I would I'm not that tech savvy, but I like painting because I used to do painting as well.
yeah.
So drawing, adding highlights and shadows, dodge and burn, the usual thing with a pen.
Yeah.
It's my go-to of how I edit.
Yeah, and that's, to be honest, that's the same with me. I kind of I do a little bit with a mouse for speed, but the minute that I get to the point, right now I've got to specialize on the detail, the pad comes out, once, but dropping all the images in, I just drop onto the mouse for that kind of stuff. It's the other thing that I notice, and which leads to the question: how long do you wait for all the people to disappear, or are you getting into these places when they're not actually physically open?
So most of them are open. I'm usually the early bird, so I'll be the first one in. I'll be there about half an hour before they open, or 15 minutes at least. So sometimes they open earlier because the staff would go in, but the door's already open. So for example, if you go to next one, I think there was one that looks like an Audi. People call it the Audi shop because they got all the rings. Yeah, that's the one. So that's in Copenhagen. It's so you can see the Scandinavian design is very, very raw brick. So it's all about the material in here, and so it's very, very clean lines, very high window. So about 15 minutes after this shot was done, the room was completely packed, and there's no way I can shoot that after that. So I was. This was the second day I was there because the first day it was cloudy, so I came in for a good day and had a chat with them, and I showed them my similar to this book, but wasn't this one, but a similar book, just to explain what I'm doing, my project and everything, about creating this long ongoing project called the Omniscience, and Omniscience means all-seeing. So it's the whole project is about creating these vertical panoramas. They look rather unusual. And my point is also take away the religious aspect of it and just look at it purely in the architectural geometry of the work.
They just look so cool. They look cool.
It was nice because we have people who came to I had some previous exhibition shows, and they came to talk to me. They didn't have great experience with their childhood with religion, but by seeing them in that way, it doesn't trigger that. They just look at it as a beautiful piece of art. So
Yeah.
so the symmetry and the balance of light and shadow, they rather enjoyed it. So I'm glad to hear that people actually realize that it's not so much about religion, but it's all about the
It's about
medieval
pattern.
architecture and
It's about
seeing it.
architecture and pattern.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
very and interesting. I'm just going to jump back a couple because this one and the next one. Now you're saying about shooting on a cloudy day, but I've got to
yeah,
say this piece of light
yeah,
where it's sitting is
yeah.
makes this picture. It's absolutely
I think
superb.
so. Yeah. So some of the ones I personally I prefer strong sunlight,
Hmm.
because it really creates the mood. Because that's how cathedrals were designed. I go to there in the morning because that's a beautiful morning light. They always face churches are generally normally they sort of designed it that way.
Yeah.
uh, and uh, this one was a little bit different than usual, because the window light was coming from a direction that I initially wanted to photograph. So I would be shooting into the light. It would be no contrast. It would lose a lot of detail because of the direct sunlight, and a massive floodlight on the higher up on the second floor, or the upper window. So I turned and used a different angle, and I got this shot, which I'm pretty happy with. Yeah,
It's a similar thing with this in terms
that
of
was a
the
sunny
light
day
as
as
well.
well.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a sunny
it's a
day as
similar
well.
thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, you're mixing your cloudy days with your sunny days, and I think it gives a completely different look to your work. Let's you see. I mean, so next question is going to be from me is
yeah,
that when you
yeah.
walk in to a church and you see this, are you then straight into, okay, you know what you're going to do, you know how you're going to set yourself up, or again, is it a case of, right, take a few shots just to see where your best position is, or do you
Yeah.
actually know within you, this is where I'm going to take this from?
So that was from the because cathedrals they look like a crucifix when you look
Yeah,
up from if you have a
yeah,
drone view of it,
yeah,
and it's very clearly they have the nave in the front, and then they have the dome or the crossing, depending whether they're square or round, and then they also have the choir at the back. So in general, there are three parts of it
mm,
that would make a really good Vertrama, because the main aspect for these cathedrals is the symmetry. They are absolutely impeccable. Like
yeah,
it's incredible to see how they were actually made, or they were actually built in the 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, and they managed that mathematic.
yeah,
It's ridiculously, how did they do that? And when we stand exactly where the center point is. So at this point, there's two areas I need to make sure is am I in the middle of an aisle facing the altar? And the second thing, when I'm looking up to the ceiling, am I perfectly centered when I'm looking up? So the position of creating these Vertramas is the crucial part of
yeah,
creating these
yeah,
these these work, and to make it work, because there's so many. I mean, it's hard because you do composites, and I think you would. It's hard to discern um, how much you want to have in an image, because it can be too cluttered. It can
yeah.
it can disrupt, because in architectural terms, like if it's not helping the composition, it's hurting it. So what are we? What am I keeping? What am I? How am I lighting the space? So which are the reasons why I shoot HDR panorama is because I have the full control of how much ambient light and the
Yeah,
lighting, and how I want to shape the light in the space so that it helps to guide the viewer through the image, and how it balances. Um,
that's very true, and that's
yeah,
interesting because we did sort of speak a little bit about this before we came on. Is that you know, you have all the, as a photographer, you get bombarded by rules, rule of thirds, you can't do the horizon, can't be in the middle. You have all of that thrown at you.
Yeah.
I've never taken any notice. It either
Yeah.
looks right or it doesn't to me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you're right, you can put way too much into an image.
Yeah.
I think also there's an element sometimes of, I'm going to stop there because otherwise you might feel it's not finished, but you can just keep going on forever and ever if you don't.
Yeah.
You know, you got
Yeah.
at one point you
Yeah.
got to go right.
I had the tendency, but I think you were probably worse than me because you spent at least a few hundred hours more than I do. I mean, I thought 40 hours on a piece of work was a lot, but
Yeah,
you've totally topped that. Like,
yeah,
way past it. Yeah.
but you kind of so the bit for me, so I don't know how this fits with you, but the bit for me, the bit I like is I think of the image. I'm very fortunate that I see it completely finished in my head. And then I go wherever I need to in the world to find the elements to then photograph and build that image. But that bit from thinking it and working out how I'm going to actually create it, that's the
Yeah.
bit I love. I'm a problem solver,
Okay.
so that's
Yeah.
the bit I
Yeah.
love. Whereas, I mean, Lee's put a question on there about are some of these handheld or is it always a
Okay.
tripod? Because he is
Um.
correct. In some
Yeah.
places, won't let you put a tripod up.
Yeah. 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 So some of them are handheld, some of them are tripod.
Ah,
These are tripod. Funny thing, because um, I when I first started, because it wasn't planned out. Okay, now I need to do a series of this. It was about experimenting and what works and what not. And at those days, we just photograph it, shoot it. It doesn't need to be perfect. We mostly do it handheld. Or if we pull a tripod out if we need to, and if they kick us out, they kick us out.
yeah,
It was a starting point. It was playing around and trying
yeah,
things. But then it later, I've got quite serious, and I decided this is a project for me that is worth me to invest probably many years of my life from now on or forward into this project, because they all have very different personalities. They're all from different ages. This is Minster, and this is one of my most recent work. And I've
wow,
been there 7 years ago, and when they have scaffolding on. And 7 years ago, I know how to do panorama, but I'm I'm not Vetrama for this part is very, very tricky because the choir, this is the choir section, so the pointy,
right,
so the squire bits around here, not the squire, but it's very close to the camera,
yeah,
so it requires a lot more work to correct them in Photoshop.
mm,
So not until about 2020 or 2021 that I worked out how to fix them. So it's nice that Yachtminster actually went and asked me, would you like to come and do some work with us?
wow,
And this is with Yachtminster as part of the, so this is 6 in the morning or 6:30 in the morning. He lighted the candles for me to shoot it. So in terms of the question about handheld and not allowing tripods, I would
mm,
suggest at the beginning, I just chance it. It's better. What do you say again? You better apologize than ask permission at some point. So those were the early days. But since I've got quite serious with this project, and I've spoken with, so St. Paul's is one of my partners now in St. Paul's, London. So with them on board, Ely's on board, Yachtman's is the latest one on board, and
mm,
the Danish one that we saw earlier. So there were more and more cathedrals that I'm working with, and I want to make sure that what I'm doing is legit and it's okay. So nowadays I ask for permission and I show them the book and I send them an email. So it became more clear that if they are happy to collaborate or
mm,
to want these artwork, I can offer them, and I can sell them and I can so a lot of these permissions need to go through before I can actually launch the artwork to sell. Um, and to have a tripod that I can use, and also the time becomes more flexible. Or, after hours, I was able to shoot St. Paul's. So the one with the dome earlier, that was nighttime at St. Paul's. That was about 8 in
oh,
the evening. So that was completely empty because
yeah,
everyone was out, and I waited for a year to get in there to do that because to get a chance to do that. So some of the works is just, you know, you have to wait for them to come back, you know, and then you have a day that you can actually shoot it, and you make sure everything you got it right on the day.
Yeah, I mean, deciding when you're putting the images together, deciding what the final image is going to look like, that must be the
So it
enjoyment
was,
part, if you like.
yeah. So you know how people get a buzz of shooting film, because
Yeah.
you don't get those instant gratification that we have nowadays, where you take the picture on a phone or on a digital camera, you can see exactly what you get in the back. And I think you and I share a very similar thing, because our vision goes beyond that picture. And for me, none of my pictures make sense individually. You know, none of the pictures, there's no composition. There was just parts of a puzzle that needs to put together. So the concept is a very, as opposed to how sculptors do. How sculptors would have block and they would start shaving things off. So it's a very deductive process where they would sort of carve things, and they get to meld things together and feel what is right and wrong. So in a very interesting way, that's how they work. But for shooting panoramas, I would have a full scene, because I would looking in the scene on the camera, which is a small part when you think about it, is 1 out of 9 shots. And I was looking at the details of that particular one, and I would shoot multiple shots, and then they will blend together into one. So I don't know exactly what is going to come out until I put it together. And it will usually, I would shoot the space, I would have an idea of it, but I would generally leave the artwork to untouch it for a few weeks. And then I would sort of work on it and have various color palettes or color experiments, color studies with with all the information I got from the raw files, and to try out various ways to edit. So one of the ones that was not shown on here is on my Instagram feed, is the spiral staircase of the Vatican Museum. So you might not be able to see it on here. so that image took me over a year. I sat on it for over a year because I couldn't quite find the right lighting to make it work. So it was, it wasn't editing it on it every day, but it was sometimes it's just a spark of inspiration, looking at something else and then applying, that quality of light. Would it work on that image?
Okay. Let me just see if
some of these. I think this one I sat on it for a year as well.
All right, I've got your Instagram. I've got your Instagram page up, so we can actually show that. Just one.
I like how tech savvy you are with this. This is great.
Here we go. That's the one you're talking about.
Yeah. So I don't have the raw in front of you, but the raw one, you can see everything. So there's no. It doesn't feel like, there's pockets of light where it guides your eyes.
Yeah.
So I went through various editing versions until I got to this point. So I just, I don't rush them anymore nowadays. Back in the day, I do, but I think after working for so long on different artworks of Virtuamas, my go-to method is take the time to sink it in.
Yeah. So are you therefore using a color lookup table, or is that how you're playing around with the different color that you want, or are you just doing that in RAW, in camera RAW?
I do it in camera RAW, yeah. Which is one of the reasons why I worked in Lightroom most of the time.
Okay.
Because I mean, I don't know whether I'm getting too technical. Am I moving away from
no, it's fine. No, people. No, seriously, people will want to know that. I think it's good. I think I said to you before we come on, I do talks all over the country, and I tell people how I do what I do, and they often say to me, "Why are you telling us?" I used to be a teacher. I like to help people, but they won't do what I do because I haven't got my brain. And it's a similar thing. You need your brain to understand what you see. You know, and I think that's what makes it art. It's not going to jump down the AI route right at this particular moment, because
Well,
that is
we can
something.
talk about that. We can talk about it in a little bit. I have a few inputs for you. I think you mentioned.
Yeah, well, okay, well, go
Yeah,
for it,
yeah,
because
yeah.
I'm not disappointed is the wrong. I think sometimes it's great to potentially use it if you are someone that struggles with a lack of imagination and you want to give a bit of an idea, and so you can go off and create something perhaps.
Yeah.
But actually being able to create a whole image and claim that it's yours, it's just, no, I'm sorry, it's not for
Yeah,
me.
so
But
there is a whole lot of, there's a can of worms for us, isn't it? So
yes,
I think of it a few ways. So in terms of AI artwork, we generally quite, we as artists, we have a bit of hate towards it. Even though when I use Photoshop, the gen fill in Photoshop, removing certain
oh
things
yeah,
became
yeah.
incredible. So
Yeah,
it's very quickly become an essential part of my editing, because it
yeah,
saved me 2 hours
agree.
of, because my usual way, like the shot earlier with the Bath Abbey, it looks empty, but I was there for 4 hours, and the reason is there was a choir going on in there. So I
Right.
was standing in the middle and I was waiting for people who get off the chair and take the shot of that person off the chair. And then by doing multiple, like 10 or 15 of these shots, just making sure that I remember which person left. Is that an empty seat? I will take that shot from the middle of the aisle so that I can blend that part of the image back to the original. So by
Yeah.
blending multiple pockets of empty space, I managed to create the image completely empty.
Yeah, and there is something in Photoshop you can do, and
Yeah,
you probably know this, but you can
yeah,
take a
the
shot every
medium.
5 seconds
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
put it into, and it takes all the people out. And
Yeah, but the thing is,
yeah,
it's a choir, so they can't. I can't
yeah,
stand there all the
exactly.
time.
What I was about to
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
I
yeah,
did
yeah,
that
yeah,
once, and there was a guy
yeah,
just standing on his phone. It didn't move. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
you know,
they a lot of these, and especially when you're shooting so wide, that
yeah,
literally, I mean, this is the lens that I have on it, and if I put my finger on here, it will see it. So
yeah,
this is a 10 millimeter, and if I put my
yeah,
finger in here, the lens will
yeah,
see my finger.
yeah,
It
yeah, yeah,
was
yeah.
this wide, so it's ridiculous how wide it is. So it's very what do you call it? It's like it's almost almost like I'm trying to tell people this is all for me. This is my space.
Yeah.
It's very different to my own personality, because I don't want to disrupt people when they were there. So I'll just wait. I wouldn't ask them to leave or move out the way. But this kind of virtual kind of requires me to take over the entire space. Like
Yeah.
I'm here, you guys move out the way. So it's a really weird combination with my personality. It's completely different to
Yeah,
how
it's
I interact with people.
I'd say the same.
Um,
I mean, people have said to me in the past,
yeah,
where has this come from? Some of the stuff, because some of the stuff I do
yeah.
is pretty dark. Um, but I think it's just your way of being able to, you know, bring
Yeah,
out what's in here, can come out.
yeah,
You're not going off and doing something you
yeah,
shouldn't be
yeah.
doing. You're just creating something that's amazing. And you saying about that, um, a few years ago, I went to Angkor Wat, and I wanted to go there because I had an idea of a picture that I wanted to create, but I spent so long waiting for people to disappear. Of course, you've got a group of people coming on with a guide. They're all standing there. You wait for them to go, and you've probably got about 2 or 3 minutes
Well, we
before the
see
next lot come. Yeah. So
I identify that a lot, because it
yeah,
happens a lot, especially when
yeah.
you travel and you
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's
yeah,
something.
yeah,
So there's a
yeah.
few little questions. So and this one's an interesting one because Scott has said, "Love your work. What aperture range do you typically use for these images? Wide open or closed down for the starburst effect?" So
Okay.
that pretty much proves that you're not going too technical, because there are people wanting to know those things.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I usually, because I'm on a 10 mil, so I mean that's how big the lens is. It's a
Yeah,
5.6.
yeah,
So yeah, it's not going to be incredibly sharp wide open. So I would avoid anything wide open in terms of architecture for
hmm
panoramas. I would go with f11 because I know this lens is as good as the back of my hands. I've been using it for many years, so I know when it hits sort of after f16, you don't want to use it because of diffraction. So I know the sweet spot is somewhere between 11 to 16 or 13.
And what about with the 85?
85, well, in terms of the sweet spot, or
Yeah.
85. Well, if I shoot, let me see. I don't shoot cathedrals with the 85. I shoot the cathedrals with the 50.
10. With the 50. Okay.
Because that's the other. So the ones that you saw here, the Omniscience project, is about the entire space. But I think in the collection that you saw, one of them is the Danish church again, but without the ring lights on. So it's very, very dark, but with just one light, cascading lights and shadow coming through.
I think that's is that
it's called that. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it looks like a tilt shift 24mm shot, but it's actually a 50mm.
Right.
At f4, I think, or something like that. But it's a stitch. So I stitched it 4 shots.
Wow.
Yeah, and the lines would automatically be lined up if you merge it in Photoshop or Lightroom, because they would tend to fix the verticals for you. And then
I was going to ask that, because obviously,
yeah. So make sure you get the center, you get the shot, and then you will end up with something like 150 megapixel shot. You got all the brick details all the way. It's how detailed it is. So that one's going to be as an A1 print. That's going to be in the show.
Oh, cool. Yeah, cool.
So you can get to see the details on it. What was I saying earlier? We talked about. Do you want to jump into AI? I know. We.
Yeah, go on. No, go for it. Go for it.
Okay, so a lot of the aggro that we have is because there's effortless for them. With the palm of their hands, type in the keywords, and you can get whatever artists, painters from centuries, of years of master, and you can emulate, some of the brushstrokes or the color tones in that, which bugs us a lot. But I think the disruptions that it have now is probably something that when photography came out, and there's a similar kind of qualities that would have done to painting at the time. It's like when cars came out, and what did the horses do? So it had a disruption quality to it.
Yeah.
But we need to think about, like, photography. We had about 200 years of development, and we have a lot of trailblazing photographers who champion this as an art form rather than documentary. It's truly
I would say it's taken 200 years for it to be accepted as an art form, actually.
I would, yeah. So think about AI as a starting point, and they need trailblazers to push that. And it can be seen as lazy, and a lot of them are, because they're experimenting. And it's a very quick satisfaction for people who are not into the artwork. But the truly good AI work, the artist in the prompt, the artist is asking the right questions. So the actual visual aspect of it is just it's just a display to see, but the true art is actually on the prompt. So unless they can control that, and maybe at the moment, because it's so close to faking a painting or faking a photography, it's very close. But give it time, it will start to diverge, and the way that we appreciate AI artwork will probably be different to how we appreciate photography.
I think so. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think as long as it is made clear that it is AI and not being tried to be passed off as something else, then
I think honesty is it needs to. But humans are
not honest.
People have the tendency. Not always. I mean, there are good, but they would make mistakes. Some people want a shortcut, and then let them.
It's a very diplomatic way of putting it.
And then, I think somebody would be cancelled, but the true artists will get back on their horses and continue to create, and they will make great AI art.
And I think also look, the biggest part for me with what I do is thinking of the image in the first place, and we would be wrong, I suppose, to say that other influences. So as an example, I think I said to you right at the stop before we came on, actually, that I started by my dad had me in a dark room when I was 3. I learned a lot about photography, but I didn't really get back into it until years later when I got a digital camera. But I wanted to learn Photoshop, so I then went to Glyn Jewish tutorial. I think I did 3, which set me down this path. But of course, what you're doing, it really is, you're kind of using that person or whoever's taught you and what they do as your starting point. How you then develop that is that's you, that's your thing, and your style. Your style defines you, because people know what my work is. People will definitely know what your work is, because there's not many people doing it. So and it becomes suddenly, it's it becomes an amazing thing. And you'll see from when you do Flux, the reaction that people give to photographs, and it's quite heartwarming that they do, because it has taken an awful long time for photographers to be regarded as artists. Certainly, I mean, I have had refusals for exhibitions where the people have said, well, it's not art, so we're not accepting it. Thinking, well, okay, just because I haven't used a paintbrush on some paints, it doesn't mean it's not art. So I think I agree. I think it's got a long way to go, but I think it's great as well if you're trying to put across to somebody an idea, then jumping into AI, bringing that up and saying, look, this is what I'm talking about. And then you go ahead and create it properly. I think that can be quite useful, because I have photographed a lot of people in the past who don't have any vision or imagination at all. And so to try and explain to them what you're trying to get from them, that's not a bad starting point.
It's tricky.
Yeah, it is tricky. So my next question, I mean, we've got time's flown. I knew it would. I knew this would be great. Got a few minutes, but you said that your wife really didn't like your photographs when you were taking your daughter and all the rest of it. What about these ones now? What does she think about those?
It's all right. Yeah.
It's all right.
It's all right. Not a cup of tea.
Yeah. So I think, I think it's very
which is good. It's good, because I don't want anyone to be too like, oh, this is awesome, this is amazing. I want someone who can tell me the brutal honesty, because I kind of know this work. There are people who've seen it, have no idea what they're looking at, and multiple times they don't. But the one person who out of 100 who saw it, I think, oh, usually more than 100, because most of my friends are photographers. They would see, and they can see there's a lot of technical skill in there to master, to get it that perfectly lined up. So they appreciate the artistry, but it might not be their taste. So I would see it a little bit like Marmite sometimes, whether people wanted this kind of work, or they might not appreciate it. So it's okay for me. I feel like that's part of the journey of being an artist, is you have to. There's going to be a lot of people who have no clue what you're doing,
and also but also the amount of work that's gone into it. And I think that's the thing. So when you do an exhibition, when you do Flux in July, the biggest single thing that you can do before you do anything else is talk to as many people as you can and tell them how you do it and what you do, because then they start to understand how much work's gone into it. They buy into you as an artist. That's a real big thing, that they buy into you as an artist. And one of the reasons why I do this weekly show on YouTube for artists is because PR is a lot of money. It's a fortune. And what will happen is you can be doing a show. There might be a dozen people around you, but you can only speak to one couple. And all those other people are not really listening, but they're looking at your work. And you're able to point them in the direction. So look, if you missed me, you can jump on here and this tells you everything that I do. And I think
Yeah.
that for me, that's a real big thing, and a real
Yeah.
big reason why I do
I
this.
really
Give
appreciate
everybody
you
help.
taking the time out and offering these video interviews with us lot.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
very interesting for me, because to be honest, every single one that I've done, I've learned something, you know, and that's, I
Yeah.
think, is all part and parcel of it. And sometimes also a lot of my work will come from talking to somebody. I'll get an idea while I'm talking to them. You know, I'm thinking, oh, hold on a minute, I'll store that, because that's given me an idea for a picture, or, you know, that kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
thing. And also, these are often about the things that you where you meet people. I see. So Neil Ryler has put on here now. I've known Neil a long time. We both go to the Lincoln Steampunk Festival, but
Oh, nice.
Neil is a brilliant photographer. He specialises actually in doing live burlesque shows.
Oh, wow.
And I've got to be honest, I haven't seen anybody beat him for taking those sorts of shots. But he
Oh,
also
wow.
does some absolutely superb landscape work, really, really quality work. And I think, and there's a lot of photographers out there as well who, you know, when I am doing a talk, I say, how many of you have got thousands of pictures on your computer or ones you've printed off sitting in the loft? They all put their hands up. And then I say, and how many of you have sold any? Nobody. And the reason is because we're all putting our work on the wall for people to criticize it, basically. And
Yeah.
that's very difficult to take, you know. And it is, well, here you go. Look, somebody's watched your editing on
Oh, thank
Instagram.
you.
Truly amazing watch, Joseph. Yeah,
I
thank
put
you very much for that.
I occasionally I'll put 1 or 2 on it.
Yeah, and I think, yeah, I have thought about doing that, but the trouble is, as I told you, the picture behind me is 2,000 layers in Photoshop, so it might be a very long video. But I think the trouble is, you have to have the courage to start. That's the real thing. You have to have the courage to start. And you know, there is clearly a lot of photographers that have been on it tonight, and thank you all very much for
No,
coming.
thank you for
But
coming.
you know, your work is quite amazing. I'm really looking forward to seeing it in the flesh
Yeah.
at Flux. We will have a few drinks on the PV night,
I
and
look forward
if we
to
get
it.
a chance. I mean, to be honest, I do so much talking, I don't have time to
Yeah.
drink. Or somebody will give me a bottle of water and say, for God's sake, take a
Yeah.
breath.
Yeah.
But you know, this. I find them very inspiring, and I hope people that have been watching definitely agree with me that they are quite magical and very inspiring. Really, really fantastic.
I
It's not
look forward
often.
to I do look hopeful to meet somebody to chat about some of the pieces.
Yeah.
I just out of curiosity, you probably can't see it, but there is a cat here.
Well, hold on. I need
There's
to
a
make
cat
you bigger, not me.
because the cathedrals it's just a quick story. I know we're running out of time.
No, that's fine.
But,
we can go past it.
So
Don't worry.
this
Carry on.
this one is called Dawkins. It was shot in 2019. So they have a cathedral cat that was there who for 12 years it was there on a doorstep. So that's why they call it Dawkins. So they adopted the cat. So the cat became the custodian of the whole cathedral for 12 years. And so on this day, it was interesting because usually they have chairs. You can notice this one is the only one that doesn't have chairs.
Okay.
Because it was a London Fashion Week. So the day after the London Fashion Week, they were going to put the chairs back because they had the stage and people to walk down the aisle. So I got a call because I was friends with them after they're taking the shots. So he rang me up at 8 in the morning and said, Peter, the cathedral is completely empty. So if you want to come and take pictures, you need to come now because in 2 hours time, you're going to pop the chairs back in. So I was just like, oh crap. So I had to rush out with the camera and then go to that place, set up the shot. And luckily the sunlight was really good, so you can see how harsh light and shadow. So I did about 5 or 6 iterations of this one until I was settled with this edit. But it was, by the time I finished taking the shots, and the cat was just right there walking by, so I took another shot to capture the cat walking by. In the it was just into the light. So if anyone comes to see the artwork, you might try and look it up. Yeah. Or I have videos as well. I think it's on my feed somewhere, with showing the cat. So yes, each of these pieces have a little bit of story. It melds with my inner dialogue with my childhood when I edit the pictures, thinking about the games that I played, and I spent a lot of time gaming with my brother. These Japanese sort of adventure games. So I have the visions of, that kind of lighting, that kind of style, that it came through that. So it kind of and also these are real places. They're not completely made up. So to me, it's a balance between realism and fantasy, and it's putting together, and it's kind of a time capsule as well, being in these spaces in the medieval times. It's a combination.
It's interesting you saying that right at the beginning, because the minute you said it, I suddenly thought of Myst, the game Myst. Because
you played Myst? Yes.
So I played Myst. Adventure games were my thing. I did loads of them, but they were worlds that were created that you will walk in your way through, and if you think about it, the lighting is quite brilliant what they did. A long time ago too. A long time ago as well. But look, this has been amazing. Scott has put here as well. Thanks for hosting. It's very enjoyable, which is great. It has been really, really very cool. Thanks everybody for watching. Stay on. I'm just going to wrap a few things up. I've got a little video to let people know who is performing, and actually Neil Rylett will know this one very well. But this lady is going to be performing at Flux, and I've just got a little video to show, so people have got a bit of an idea on that before I say goodbye. But for now, thank you, Peter. This has been fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you.
Likewise,
really
thank you so much for giving me the stage to talk a little bit about my work. I really appreciate it.
Brilliant. And don't rush away. I'll talk to you in a bit.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. I told you it'll be amazing, and definitely going to get him back on at some stage, because I still have an armful of questions about things. But if you're coming along to Flux, you'll be able to talk to him, as will I, and I'm sure we'll have some good bits of conversation. I might record some of them for a future one of these. But I just said I'll show you a little video of Scarlet Butterfly is going to be performing at the Private View, and it's a bit special, as you'll see, because she performs on a lyra pole or lollipop, and I'm going to play you a quick video of her before we shut down for the night. But thanks very much. Now, I hasten to add there won't be any fire. Hate to see thousands of pounds worth of artworks go up in one night, but as you can see, she is quite amazing, and actually features in an awful lot of my work, actually, which is also good for me. Anyway, thanks very much. Next week's guest, I've already said, Carolina. So she's also a photographer. So all you guys out there that are photographers, be great to see you next week. But for me now, thanks very much.